Hey, what's up, Angels fans, and welcome back to Angels Latest, the daily show where we talk about everything happening with our Halos the same way we do with our friends. We're a little hopeful, a little frustrated, a little traumatized, and sometimes a little delusional, but we're always locked in. Well, it's the off season, and that means it's officially Christmas list season for baseball fans all over. This is the time of year when we all turn into GMs, sketch out our fantasy lineups, and hope we unwrap a superstar under the Christmas tree in December, and then watch them shine under the lights at the Big A come April. Well, we're continuing our Angels Wish List series. Yeah, looking at the biggest names on the free agent market and evaluating who could actually help turn this team around in 2026. Today, we've got two big player names Angels fans would absolutely love to see in red. Two players who would instinctively inject power, personality, and star presence into this lineup. Two players who would light up the scoreboard, light up the fan base, and light up the Big A. Two players who fit perfectly into this ongoing offseason wish list series. So let's jump right into it. All right, Angels fans, let's break it down. How about Cody James Bellinger, MVP, Gold Glover, Comeback Player of the Year, a guy who's had highs, lows, resurgent, and now enters free agency at a fascinating moment in his career. And the big question, is Cody Bellinger a realistic fit for the Angels, both in the budget and on the field? Well, let's dive right into it. So Cody Bellinger was born July 13th, 1955 in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's the former Dodger superstar from 2017 to 2022, and he revived his career with the Cubs and the Yankees. He bats left and throws left. He has elite versatility in center field, corner outfield, and first base. From the moment he arrived in 2017, he was electric, winning the National League Rookie of the Year and becoming a key Dodgers face in 2019. That was his peak superstar season. NL MVP, he was the Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, All MLB First Team, one of the best single seasons of the modern era. And then he fell off. Injuries, swing changes, shoulder issues, but then came the resurgent. His 2023 comeback season reestablished Bellinger as a dangerous, productive player, and his 2025 numbers continued that rebound. In 2025, here's some of his statistics, a snapshot: a 272 batting average, a 334 on-base percentage, a 480 slugging percentage, 29 home runs, 98 runs batted in, 13 stolen bases, and when you look at some of his advanced metrics, an 88.3 mile per hour average exit velocity, 37.9% hard rate hit, a 7.5% barrel rate, and a 347 weighted on-base average. Basically, a 322 was expected, but he definitely overachieved that one. These aren't his MVP level numbers yet, but they show a productive, consistent, reliable player who fits and hits for contact and power and gets on base and plays solid defense. This is the Bellinger teams want: the athlete, the competitor, the adaptable star. Some notable awards and accomplishments again: in 2017, Rookie of the Year for the National League, NLCS MVP in 2018, NL MVP in 2019, Gold Glove winner in 2019, Silver Slugger in 2019 and 2023. He was an All-Star in 2017 and 2019, and of course, Comeback Player of the Year 2023. And remember, Bellinger is still only 30 years old when the 2026 season begins. So let's take a look at some contract projections for his free agency. Currently, the market suggests 5 to 6 years, $25 to $30 million per year. totaling 125 to 180 million. This is not unrealistic for the Angels. In fact, this is exactly the kind of contract Arte Moreno has given out repeatedly. And we'll talk more about Angels' budget here in a little bit. But for now, just know that yes, the Angels can afford Cody Bellinger. And why Bellinger fits the Angels roster? Well, there's things get interesting here. He's got positional versatility. He plays center field, left field, right field, first base. This gives you flexibility with Trout's aging body and the future of first base. He also is a left-handed power bat. The Angels need this. He splits the lineup. He brings balance. He's got lineup construction. He can hit anywhere from the number 2 spot through the number 5 spot. He brings outfield stability. He gives you coverage when Trout DHs or needs rest. And he's a future at first base. He's got, as Trout ages, as prospects move around and as rosters shift, Bellinger can become your first baseman later in the contract. That's how these deals age well. And of course, when we look at the pros, we look at the risks and the cons. Some of the risks he shows is the inconsistency across seasons, hard hit metrics lower than true superstar levels. Contract could look heavy if the bat dips, but overall, Bellinger checks a lot of boxes if the Angels want a versatile, left-handed, athletic, prime age bat to stabilize their outfield and lineup. All right, Angels fans, so that's Cody Bellinger, a rebound star, a lefty bat, a versatile weapon who checks a ton of boxes for the Angels. But now we're switching gears. We're going from versatility to raw, unapologetic, big A scoreboard shaking power, because this is what we're going to talk about, the polar bear himself, Pete Alonso. Let's talk about the man who hits baseballs like they owe money to him. Pete Morgan Alonso. He was born on December 7th, 1994 in Tampa, Florida. One of the most feared right-handed power hitters of his generation. This dude has done one thing in the big league since he arrived in day one. He tanks. He nukes. He hits baseballs into the stratosphere. So let's break him down. So who is Pete Alonso? Here's a quick profile on him. He debuted with the Mets in 2019, immediately became a superstar, nicknamed the Polar Bear for obvious reasons. Bats right, plays first base, one of MLB's premier power hitters for 6 straight seasons, multiple-time All-Star, fan favorite everywhere he goes. Alonso isn't a mystery box. You know exactly what you're buying with this guy. He hits home runs, RBIs, fear factor, and team leadership. Here's some accomplishments behind him and the hardware he holds. The 2019 NL Rookie of the Year. Alonso was the 2019 MLB home run leader, 2022 NL RBI leader, 5-time All-Star 2019, 2022, 2023, 24, and 25. Silver Slugger Award in 2025. All MLB first team in 2019. This is not a one-year wonder. This is one of baseball's most consistent run producers. Looking at his 2025 statistical snapshots with some advanced metrics, Pete Alonso's 2025 season was a monster. 272 batting average, 38 home runs, 126 runs batted in, an 871 on-base plus slugging, which put him 6th in the National League. When you look at some StatCast power metrics, a 93.5 mile per hour average exit velocity puts him in the elite status. 54.4% hard hit rate, elite status. 18.9% barrel rate, elite status. 368 weighted on base average. It was 385 expected with elite numbers there, and these numbers do not lie. Pete Alonso is a middle of the order wrecking ball. When he steps into the batter's box, pitchers get nervous, fans lean forward, games change with one swing of the bat. The Angels haven't had that kind of consistent home run force since, well, peak Trout and peak Ohtani at the same time. Here's why Pete Alonso fits the Angels lineup. First, immediate 3 or 4 hole anchor hitter. You pencil him into the heart of the order and don't touch it for a decade. Second, he protects Trout and O'Hoppe. Pitchers can't pitch around anyone anymore. Third, he brings fan base electricity. A 40-homer slugger in Anaheim would give the team identity again. Fourth, he's mentally tough and clubhouse presence. Alonso has handled New York pressure, Angel pressure, Anaheim pressure is a vacation. 5, he's durable and consistent. He plays a lot. He's available. He produces. So where does he fit in the roster? Where does he play? Well, it's simple. Pete Alonso is your everyday first baseman with occasional DH usage, and that's both a blessing, stability guaranteed production, and also a compliment. You are locking in first base down for at least 5 to 6 years. When you look at the contract projection for 2025-26 free agency for Alonso, based on production, metrics, and age, about 5 to 6 years, $26 to $32 million per year. Totals about $130 to $190 million. Short-term bidding, possibly 3 to 4 years for $90 to $130 million if the market softens. Now here's the part Angels fans care about. Yes, this fits the Angels' budget. This is exactly the category Arte Moreno has spent money on in the past. Pujols, Trout, Rendon, Hamilton, Upton. So if the Angels want Pete Alonso, the money is there. The question is execution, not affordability. What are some of the risks? Well, first base only profile. If the bat declines, the whole contract suffers. Defensive limitations compared to Bellinger. Swings can be streaky, although his baseline power remains elite. But even with the risks, there are very few hitters in baseball you can pencil in for 35 to 45 home runs every single year. And Pete Alonso, he's one of them. So Pete Alonso is a different kind of wish list player. Bellinger is flexible and athleticism. Alonso is raw power and star presence. Both bringing value, both bring upsides. Both Alonso and, gives you a little bit of something the Angels have lacked for far too long. A true bankable middle of the order power threat who hits baseballs into the Disneyland monorail. All right, Angels fans. So that's Pete Alonso, a nuclear power bat, a middle of the order presence, and a dude who has absolutely no problem dropping 40 bombs a year. Between Cody Bellinger's versatility and Alonso's sledgehammer power, both of these guys would be a massive addition to any lineup, especially ours. But here comes the big question now. The same question Angels fans ask every offseason. The same question that lights up the comment section like a Christmas tree. Yeah, but can Arte Moreno actually afford these guys? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about spending history, payroll perception, reality, and whether the man who owns the Angels is really cheap or if the truth is a little more complicated. So let's talk about Arte Moreno. Every offseason, Angels fans split into 2 camps. Camp A, Arte won't spend. He's cheap. Nothing's ever going to change. Camp B, Arte does spend. He just spends wrong. So which one is true? So let's go back all the way back to 2003 when Arte bought the Angels and became the first Latino owner in major American pro sports. The expectations were sky high. The Angels were fresh off their World Series title, and Moreno came in as the big market spender owner. Now here's where the conversation gets interesting. So, part one, the Angels have spent big. Let's list the massive contracts the Angels have handed out under Arte. Well, we have Mike Trout, we mentioned 426.5 million. Anthony Rendon, 245 million. Albert Pujols, 240 million. Josh Hamilton, 125 million. Justin Upton, 106 million. CJ Wilson, 77.5 million. And of course, the Vernon Wells trade absorbing approximately $86 million. That is not the spending profile of a cheap owner. That is the spending profile of an owner who likes stars. He likes the headlines and likes the big splash. So when people say Arte doesn't spend, the truth is Arte absolutely spends. He just doesn't spend smartly, kind of like some of us on our own pocketbooks. So the Angels payroll rankings under Moreno. Let's take a look where the Angels usually rank. In 2003 through 2025, the payroll window, well, the Angels generally sit between 8th and 14th in MLB payroll almost every single year. They're not top 5 like the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, but consistently in that upper third tier. In 2025, the Angels payroll was around $190 million, ranking roughly 13th in Major League Baseball. So they are not a low spending team. They are not Tampa Bay. They're not Oakland. They're not Pittsburgh. They're a big market team with a big market budget that refuses to build like a modern big market team would. So let's talk about the spending versus success, the real problem. Now, this is the painful part. Despite spending, the Angels haven't reached the postseason since 2014. They haven't won a playoff game since 2009. They wasted Trout's prime. They wasted Ohtani's prime. They invested in stars without building depth, player development, or pitching infrastructure. The payroll plus the bad roster construction equals, well, disaster. Meanwhile, other teams with lower payrolls like Tampa Bay, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Miami, and Arizona have all outperformed the Angels in wins, development, and postseason trips. Yep. This is not about spending less. It's about spending smarter. So let's compare Arte to the other owners. Take the Mets in recent seasons. Their payroll around $320 to $330 million. Their willingness to pay the luxury tax, aggressive in free agency, aggressive in development and analytics. Take the Dodgers, the smartest front office in baseball. They build depth, then add stars. Their infrastructure makes stars even better. Now let's take lower spending teams. The Rays, approximately $70 to $80 million in payroll. The Marlins, approximately $60 to $70 million payroll. These teams get value. And the Angels, well, they get names. That's the difference. So what does this mean for Bellinger and Alonso? Well, here's the reality. The Angels can't afford Cody Bellinger. A 5 to 6 year deal at 25 to 30 million annually averages squarely in Moreno's comfort zone. The Angels can afford Pete Alonso. A 5 to 6 year deal at 26 to 32 million annual average is also in Moreno's historical spending window. The limiting factor is not money. It never has been. The limiting factor is building a complete roster around these contracts. Starting pitching, bullpen consistency, player development, depth, smart analytics-driven decisions. If the Angels sign Bellinger or Alonso, they must also invest in arms, infrastructure, and long-term roster balance. No more one big bat fixes everything. Those days are gone. The truth about Arte and spending is basically, Angels fans, Arte Moreno is not cheap. He has never been cheap. In reality, he just spends the money. He likes to spend it in wrong ways. He spends on stars, yes. He refuses to spend on depth. He chases highlights, not blueprints. He buys names and not systems. And until that changes, the Angels are going to continue living in this cycle. Big payroll, big names, small results. But if the Angels combine big spending with smart roster construction, well, Bellinger and Alonso are absolutely realistic options for 2026. It can happen. The question now is, will it? So now we get to dive into your comments, the takes, the debates, the jokes, the frustrations, the hopes, the chaos, all of it. And I just want to say thank you to every single one of you who's taken the time to jump into the comments and share your thoughts. It was fun to read them, and seriously, it's been really thought-provoking reading through everything. And the best part, you guys are doing exactly what this show is all about. Talking baseball like a group of buds hanging out with a cold one, breaking down our Angels with passion, honesty, and with all in respectful ways. We don't need to tear each other down. We don't need to be hurtful or personal. We can debate, disagree, argue, laugh, vent, but at the end of the day, we're all just Halos fans trying to survive this roller coaster franchise together. Can we go in for a group hug? So everyone who's commented so far, thank you very much. For everyone who's jumped in respectfully, thank you very much. For everyone who's passionate without being mean, thank you very much. This is how we build a real Angels community, and we're just getting started. All right, so let's get into some comments now. So let's take a look at our first viewer comment as it was sent in from us from Umon, and sorry about that, UOMONELNER. Tucker wasn't north of Tucker wants north of 500K. I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully we can have a shot. Well, thanks for the shout out, and we really appreciate this one. A great comment, and honestly a super common concern among Angels fans right now. So first off, yeah, man, if Kyle Tucker really is looking for something north of 500, you're talking $500 million territory, and that's Shohei Ohtani money. That's franchise-altering money. That's Disney buying Star Wars money. I mean, we got to keep it in the Anaheim area, right? Now, is he worth it? To a lot of teams, absolutely. He's a superstar. He's elite on both sides of the ball. He's entering his prime. He's a lefty bat and a sport starving for lefty bats. If anyone was going to push for that number, it could and would be a guy like Tucker. But here's the encouraging part, and I'm with you on this one, buddy. I hope you're wrong too, because if the number comes in below that, suddenly the Angels actually do have a shot. And look, we've said it all show long. Arte Moreno's not afraid of big contracts. He's handed out multiple $200 million contracts. He gave Trout almost $430 million. So if Tucker's number ends up in the $280 to $360 million range instead of $500, the Angels can be in that race. But will it be easy? Absolutely not. Will it require a bidding war with deep pocket teams? Absolutely. Is it impossible? Not at all. And hey, this is the offseason. Let us dream a little bit. Let us have hope. Let us at least believe we're in the conversation for a guy like Kyle Tucker. But great comment, and really appreciate you for jumping in and bringing that to light. All right, let's take a look at a comment from at Anthony Mora -N2Z. He says, yes, my fellow Angel fans, it sucks to be an Angels fan, but obviously the fun part about the offseason is playing GM. Already has spent, unfortunately, the signings have robbed us blind, especially with Rendon getting hurt doing his nails. Anthony, keep up the talking points, although I honestly think we go dumpster diving like every other season. I would prefer they go after two solid starting pitchers and fix that blow pen, but it's wishful thinking. I'm almost 100% positive they'll get cheap pitchers that throw volleyballs. It's the world we live in. All right, a huge shout out to at Anthony Mora -N2Z, because this comment right here is exactly the mood of Angels fans right now. Equal parts pain, comedy, PTSD, realism, and a little sliver of hope buried somewhere under all the trauma. We've all lived through this. And first off, you nailed it. The offseason is the one time of year where being an Angels fan is actually fun because we get to play GM. We get all of our dreams together. We get to imagine a rotation that just doesn't give us heartburn. And then reality hits. But for a few weeks, we are kings, we are visionaries, and we are builders. And you're right, Arte has spent money. That part is true. The problem is, well, the return on investment has looked like someone accidentally clicked buy it now on eBay at 3 a.m. Between Pujols, Hamilton, Rendon, bro, we're still paying emotional interest on those deals. Especially the Rendon broken nail era. I swear that man missed more time for minor inconvenience than I miss meetings at work. Now on the pitching, couldn't argue more. You're absolutely right. If the Angels woke up tomorrow and signed 2 legit starters and addressed the bullpen, this franchise would lose its mind in the best way. Yeah. So, we have parades, confetti, people hugging strangers in the parking lot. It would be beautiful. But like you said, are we getting aces or are we getting the annual 5.40 ERA value bin special? The pitcher equivalents of a clearance rack shirt with one sleeve longer than the other. Look, I feel you, man. The trauma is real, but here's the thing. This is the tiny little slice of optimism I'm hanging on to. The Angels know they can't dumpster dive forever. They just can't. This franchise won't tolerate it, or the fan base won't tolerate this franchise anymore doing that. The league has changed. The front office has changed, and they're running out of excuses. If there was ever an offseason to act like a real big market team, this is one. And it's now time to do it. And Anthony Mora-N2Z, thank you, man. These kinds of comments are exactly why I love this segment. Real talk, real frustration, real ideas, all delivered like friends around a table talking baseball. That's what Angels Latest is really all about. All right, let's take a look at another comment from Eden Gonzalez-15P2. He says, thanks for your insight, Anthony. I appreciate your optimism. I think we're all full of hopium as Angel fans. I like that. Arte Moreno sounds like Buzzy Bavasi, who didn't want to resign Nolan Ryan after 1979. When he got here and signed Bortolo and Kelvin Escobar, we had great arms that complemented what was homegrown and drafted with Jared Washburn, John Lackey, and Jared Weaver. I feel he's traumatized from the contracts that haven't worked out. Ohtani worked out, thankfully, and he was the last guy we landed. I love Trout, and I hate saying he's on the decline, but he is, and time is undefeated. The team really needs to draft, well, like what the Rays and Braves do, infrastructure. Needs improvement, as you were saying. Hopefully, the next hitting coach cuts the strikeouts down. Man, at Eden Gonzalez-15P2, this comment is a masterclass in Angels fan history, pain, wisdom, and perspective. Like if someone asked me, what does being an Angels fan feel like? I just hand them your paragraph, your answer. First off, hopium. Bro, that word needs to be printed on a t-shirt and sold outside section 125 because yes, that is exactly what keeps this fan base alive. Hope, frustration, delusion, and repeat. It's our fuel. Now, you brought up Buzzy Bavasi and the decision not to re-sign Nolan Ryan. One of the most painful what-if moments in Angel history. And you're right, my friend. There is a little bit of Bavasi DNA in some of Artie's decisions. Not because he's cheap, but because sometimes the Angels get scared after a big contract goes sideways. You can almost feel the organizational PTSD from Pujols, Hamilton, Rendon, even Upton towards the end. And at a certain point, it's like the front office touches a hot stove over and over again. And then finally says, no more stoves, ever. Even those cold ones. But you're spot on when you talk about the early 2000s teams. Kelvin Escobar, Bartolo Colon, Washburn, Lackey, Weaver, those rotations worked because they mixed smart signings with elite homegrown development. That's the formula modern teams like the Rays and the Braves have perfected. Spend what makes sense, develop relentlessly, build infrastructure. Don't rely on stars to carry a flawed roster. You nailed the entire blueprint, and you hit another tough truth. Mike Trout is aging. We love him forever. One of the greatest players ever. But this time, it's undefeated. And you're right, time is undefeated if the Angels want to maximize the rest of Trout's career. They have to modernize the entire operation with scouting, drafting, analytics, player development, strength and conditioning, hitting philosophy, pitching infrastructure, all of it. A new hitting coach cutting down those strikeouts, brother, please. That alone would add 5 wins. But the bigger picture is this. You're absolutely right. The Angels need to stop hoping for magic and start building a sustainable system like the Braves, Dodgers, and Rays. Teams where talent flows through the pipeline instead of out the back door. So thank you again for this comment. It's intelligent. It's historical. It's honest from the heart, man. And it's exactly the kind of conversation that makes this show worthwhile and enjoyable in doing. All right, Angels fans, time's up, and that's going to wrap up our viewer comment segment for today. And honestly, I just want to say thank you again. The comments you guys leave, the passion, the jokes, the debates, the history, the disagreements, the pure therapy session energy, it's what makes the whole thing worth doing. So thank you again. And we can disagree, we can rant, we can be frustrated, we can talk dreams, bad contracts, missed opportunities, rotations, pipelines, and all the chaos that is Angels baseball. But we do it together like a bunch of friends hanging out, talking Halos over a nice cold one. That's what this community is becoming, and I love it. So keep those comments coming. The good, bad, hopeful, angry, all of it. I'll keep reading them, and we'll keep breaking them down on every episode. All right, so let's bring it home. A quick recap before we sign off. We talked about Cody Bellinger, a flexible left-handed MVP caliber weapon who actually does fit the Angels' budget if they choose to go big. Pete Alonso, one of the most dangerous power hitters in baseball, a legit 40-homer threat every year, and yes, still financially realistic for a team like the Angels. Arte Moreno's payroll history, not cheap, just complicated. The Angels have spent money. The issue has been how they spend it and what they surround those stars with. And of course, your comments. Easily one of the best parts of the show, and I appreciate every single one of you who jumps in. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you rather have in an Angels uniform next season, Bellinger or Alonso? Do you believe the Angels will actually make a big move? And what's your blueprint for turning this franchise around? Drop your thoughts below. You know, I'll be reading them. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit the like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode of Angels Latest. All right, guys, we're building something fun here. It's a real Angels community, and I'm grateful to have you all along for the ride. Well, I'm Anthony, and thanks for joining me and hanging out. And as always, go Halos!